And ultimately, we're going to defeat them.
Long way from when you described them as a JV team.
Well,
was that bad intelligence or your misjudgment?
Keep in mind, I wasn't specifically referring to ISIL.
It's a comment the president's been torn apart over, but now the president says he wasn't talking about ISIS with that JV comment. PolitiFact's Truthometer disagrees, giving him a big fat false. And you can bet Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry got into that today. Right, Ed?
Oh, no doubt about it, Stuart. I asked Josh Earnest, the White House press secretary, why he and the president continue to say something that is not true. And as you say, this whole claim that the president was not referring to ISIS when he dismissed some terrorists in a New Yorker magazine interview in January as the JV squad, trying to put on Kobe Bryant's uniform. What's interesting is PolitiFact, as you say, has now gone back to the New Yorker magazine and asked for the full context, gotten the transcript of the interview, not just what appeared in the magazine, and the New Yorker magazine says that the interview took place on January 7th, and that David Remnick, their editor, and the president, in this interview, they were referring specifically to what happened 4 days earlier when Islamic State militants took over the Iraqi city of Fallujah. So I pressed Josh Earnest today about those details and why they continue to push this. Listen.
That sounds like a direct whether he used the name ISIS, ISIL, he was referring to an event from 4 days before where Islamic State took over Fallujah.
No. What the president was referring to is he was referring to jihadists who are engaged in various local power struggles and disputes, often sectarian. The president was not singling out a specific group. That's why he described jihadists, plural, power struggles, plural, disputes, plural. He's talking about the wide variety of groups.
Now, the Washington Post fact checker took a look at this and what Josh Earnest has previously said in defense of the president and gave him 4 Pinocchios, suggesting that their defense is not true. If you take a step back from just this back and forth, though, what's also interesting is that, this is something the president is going to be having to deal with when he gives this big speech on Wednesday about laying out a strategy moving forward, because today Janet Napolitano, his former Homeland Security Secretary, was on MSNBC saying that it was something on the radar screen for her and other top officials before she left office, ISIS and the threat from ISIS. She left office a year ago, September of 2013. So as the president makes this big speech this week about the strategy moving forward, he's undoubtedly going to get more questions about why it took so long to put that strategy together, Stuart.
Yeah, got it, Ed. Thanks very much indeed. Well, his job approval is down, so why isn't the mainstream media bringing that up? According to Media Research Center, the big 3 networks have only mentioned the president's falling numbers twice this year. That compares to the 52 times George Bush's approval numbers made news over the same time period. Oh, what a difference. To media watcher Brent Bozell on what gives. Brent, I thought that some in the establishment media were beginning to come around and to be a little more critical of the president, especially with the Gulf and ISIS. Not so?
Well, they are in a couple of things, but overall nowhere near any semblance of objectivity. Look, it's not just that it was 2 mentions, not a single full story on this, but if you go back to 2006, to the Bush years, don't we recall night after night after night, a big part of the narrative was how Bush's support was collapsing. Now you've got in 8 months on Obama with his support collapsing, 2 mentions, not a single full story. When this administration is falling apart, the media should give it the exact same coverage they gave to George Bush. If the coverage to Bush was appropriate, then this is inappropriate. If it was inappropriate with Bush, maybe this is appropriate. But think about this other number we came up with. Iraq and Bush, 33 times the media ran stories about how this was unpopular. And it was unpopular. Guess what's also unpopular? Healthcare. How many times have the media run stories about how unpopular the healthcare is in America? Not once.
Okay. Is the media in lockstep with President Obama, or are they shifting a little to be in lockstep with Hillary Clinton?
Well, they want to be in lockstep with Hillary Clinton, I think, but she just kept, stepping on herself. And they've had a very hard time, and she's doing the very best thing right now, which is getting out of the limelight, because she really made a bad start on the stage. But again, where the approval ratings are concerned, here's what's really interesting, Stuart. The same networks that aren't covering it, they have commissioned 15 different polls on the president's approval rating, but they won't air them.
Where do you think this is going? Do you ever think that the establishment media, the elites of the United States, you ever think that they will come back to the center and be equally critical of both sides of the aisle when it's warranted?
No, not this media, not in any time. Look, the national news media, this is why Fox is seeing, you people are seeing it as such an aberration because you are journalists. The national news media really have become a nesting place for the far left, as has academia. This is where they multiply. So no, they're not going to change at all. I think what's going on right now is just pure embarrassment with the president on his foreign policy, which is just so utterly incoherent. You finally see some cracks with some in the media who are just pointing out that this foreign policy makes no sense, and the president's going to have to straighten up. Now, if he gives a good speech on Wednesday, watch. They will all salute him for it.
We shall see. Brent Bozell, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, sir.